The name they erased. I wasn't invited to the will reading, not because they forgot me, because they hoped I'd stay forgotten. When grandfather died, the family gathered like vultures, polished shoes on marble floors, condolence smiles, lined with greed. And at the center of it all was my brother, Adam, the golden child, the heir, the son who carried the Valen name with pride. I carried it in silence. He carried it in headlines. They gave him everything. The land, the stocks, the estate, even grandfather's old watch, the one he never wore unless cameras were around. To me, nothing, not even a phone call. I found out about the inheritance through an online public notice days after the will was read. No one had the courtesy to tell me. Not my mother, not my aunts, not Adam. And that's when I smiled, because they thought I'd just fade away, like I always had. They didn't know I'd been watching. They didn't know I'd been reading. They didn't know that every summer I spent in grandfather's library wasn't about nostalgia, it was about studying him, his habits, his phrases, his legal documents. They didn't know I'd gone to law school. They didn't know I graduated with honors. They didn't know I'd opened a small firm under a different name, quietly handling estate disputes, asset transfers, and probate loopholes. They thought I was still that soft girl who didn't like confrontation, but softness isn't weakness. It's strategy. You see, grandfather was a traditional man, stubborn, sharp, and proud of his legacy, but he also believed in law, in order, in technicality. And in 2013, he drafted a handwritten codicil, a legally binding addendum to his will. It wasn't filed, but it was witnessed, and it was real. I found it in a hidden envelope sealed with wax, tucked behind a false panel in his study, the same place he once told me, "The world will always try to give your name to a man. Don't let them take it from you." He had left it for me, and they had ignored it. Now, they would pay for that, because while Adam paraded around with a legacy he thought he earned, I was preparing to take back not just the land, but the name. The paper they never saw coming. I didn't confront them right away. People like my family don't respond to emotion. They respond to paperwork, sealed envelopes, legal tone, cold precision. So I gave them exactly that. I took the codicil to a private notary, someone who owed me a favor. I had handled her brother's messy inheritance dispute 2 years ago, and she never forgot the results. She examined the paper in silence. Then she looked up. "This changes everything," she said. I nodded once. "I know. Grandfather's codicil didn't revoke Adam's name from the estate. No, it did something far more elegant. It split the family legacy in two. Half to Adam, the material, half to me, the symbolic, the name, the original family crest, the intellectual property rights, the Valen Foundation funds, the authority to use Valen in any business or legal endeavor. And buried within the fine print, one clause: should the Valen name be used in unethical, exploitative, or dishonorable ways, authority to revoke branding and legacy rights shall fall to Eleanor Valen. They didn't just give me a name, they gave me control over the family's reputation. Adam had the house, I had the signature. Now it was time to remind them. I drafted a legal notice, clean, professional, emotionless, informing the family of my legal standing. Attached was the notarized codicil, filed with the state. It included a cease and desist order preventing Adam from using Valen estates in any commercial deal until the codicil was reviewed. I printed 5 copies, mailed them express to each family member. No calls, no explanations, just silence. And the thunder that followed it. By Thursday, my phone rang. It was my mother, Eleanor. "What is this?" I let the silence hang. "What is this?" she asked again, sharper now. "You're attacking your own family." "No," I said. "I'm defending the only part of it that mattered." "You think grandfather would want this?" I nearly laughed. "He did want this," I replied. "He wrote it. You just didn't bother to read past the parts that benefited you." She hung up, but not before I heard the fear in her voice. They weren't afraid of losing money. They were afraid of losing face, because in our family, appearance was everything. And I now held the power to ruin theirs. And I wasn't done. I wasn't going to stop until they understood what they had erased. Not just a daughter, not just a sister, but a Valen, the daughter they trained to disappear. The first time I realized I was invisible, I was 7 years old. It was Thanksgiving. Adam had spilled cranberry sauce all over grandfather's antique carpet. Everyone laughed. He's just a boy, they said. I remember grabbing a napkin, kneeling down to clean it, and my aunt snapped, "Don't touch that. You'll just make it worse." Adam caused the mess. I became the problem. That was the rhythm of my childhood. He broke. I absorbed. He spoke. I listened. He demanded. I adjusted. I learned early that being quiet made people comfortable, so I perfected it. Not out of shyness, out of survival. If I wanted peace, I had to disappear into politeness, into yes ma'am smiles, into soft apologies and shorter sentences. Even my voice, I trained it to be smaller, softer, less threatening, but inside, I was fire, silent, controlled, waiting for oxygen. They called me sensitive, emotional, too dreamy. They told me, "You'll get married one day and take someone else's name anyway." Even when I won the regional science fair, they said, "Adam's baseball team made state finals." That's more memorable. It wasn't that they hated me, they just didn't see me as valuable. Not like him. He was loud, confident, the son, the Valen name carrier. They never noticed I was watching, listening, writing. I kept journals. I memorized conversations. I watched who made decisions and who was thanked for them. And every time they brushed me off, every time I was asked to smile and stay quiet, I wrote one sentence: "They won't forget me twice." And now the same people who didn't care where I went were about to see exactly where I'd been. Not out of spite, but out of remembrance. They may have handed Adam the estate, but I carried the history, and I would not let the Valen name become a commodity passed between egos. It was mine too, and I was done letting them treat me like a guest in my own bloodline. You got the house, I got the name. He showed up at my office without calling. Typical Adam. Entitled, loud, and sure the world would rearrange itself just because he arrived. He walked in wearing one of grandfather's old suits, tailored to fit, but hanging loose on his frame in all the ways that mattered. "You've made your point," he said without sitting. "The letter, the filing, the lawyer crap, it was dramatic. Even for you." I leaned back in my chair, calm, focused. "You read the codicil?" He smirked. "Of course I did. It's not valid. No court is going to take a dusty scrap of paper over a signed will." I slid a file across the desk. Inside, notarized copies, witness signatures, handwriting verification, legal precedents. 3 courts already have, I said. His smirk faltered. He didn't open the file. He didn't need to. He just stared at it the way someone stares at a fire they thought they'd put out. "Why are you doing this?" he asked, his voice sharper now. "You got your education, your weird little law firm. Why come for the family name?" I didn't flinch, because it was mine before it was yours. "You inherited it. I earned it." He scoffed. "You want power?" "No," I said, standing. "I want balance." He rolled his eyes. "You always were emotional. You always were average," I replied. Silence. His face flushed, not with rage, but confusion. He didn't understand how I had slipped out from under him. How the girl who once took his leftovers at dinner was now feeding him facts he couldn't swallow. "You think this makes you better?" he said, taking what wasn't yours. I stepped closer. "No, Adam. I think this makes me visible. And you hate that." His jaw clenched. "You've embarrassed the family," he muttered. "No," I said, picking up the folder. "I protected its name from becoming your personal brand." And then I leaned in, just enough for him to hear every syllable. "You got the house. I got the name. Guess which one survives history?" He didn't respond. He just left the same way he entered, without permission. But this time, he knew he couldn't walk through every door. Not anymore. The table they never made room at the family meeting was called at my uncle's estate. Same oak-paneled dining room. Same crystal glasses. Same portraits of dead Valen men on the walls. Different energy. They sat in rows like judges, not equals. My mother across from me, eyes tired but hard. Uncle Gerald, wine glass in hand, pretending this wasn't beneath him. And Corinne, fingers tapping the table like a clock counting down to drama. And Adam, of course, sitting to the side, arms folded, pretending he didn't ask for this. You've put us in a difficult position. And Corinne started. I waited. You've challenged the will, she continued. Made noise, stirred headlines. I still didn't speak. My mother leaned forward. Why now, Eleanor? I finally answered. Calm, cold. Because silence didn't work. They bristled. You could have come to us, Uncle Gerald said. I did, I said. For 26 years. The room went quiet. I came to you every time I was overlooked. Every time Adam's success was a celebration, and mine was an afterthought. Every time I was told, you'll understand when you're older. Well, I'm older now, and I understand perfectly. A pause. You want to talk about legacy? I said, rising. You handed it to Adam like a party favor. But you forgot a name isn't what you inherit. It's what you protect. They shifted uncomfortably. I placed a document on the table, the codicil, printed and certified. This isn't revenge. It's correction. My mother spoke finally. Your grandfather loved you, but this isn't what he meant. I looked her in the eye. Then maybe you should have asked what he actually meant, instead of assuming it never involved me. And Corinne sighed. So what now? You wear the crown and burn the castle? I smiled. No, I restore the castle. Then I locked the doors from people who never cared about the foundation. No one spoke, because they knew this wasn't a tantrum. It was an audit of memory, of fairness, of bloodlines built on edited stories. I didn't want power. I wanted the truth, and they had left too many receipts unshredded. The speech they didn't expect, the press invitation, was Adam's idea, a community statement. He called it to clear the air about the Valen family legacy and address internal misunderstandings. Translation: he wanted to humiliate me publicly, to make me look petty, vengeful, unstable. He didn't know I'd show up. He didn't know I'd bring a binder or a microphone. The event was held at the Valen Foundation Hall, an ornate, historical building my grandfather funded but never let me set foot in as a child. Now, I stood on its stage, rows of journalists, local leaders, community partners, even a few former donors who had whispered about the decline of family values in private. Adam walked on stage first, polished, practiced, the perfect politician. Families, he began, are complicated, but the Valens stand united despite recent distractions. That word distractions.it always came back to that. When he finished, he gestured for me to join. I stepped up, binder in hand, calm, unshaken, and then I spoke. A legacy is not what you inherit, it's what you honor. The room stilled. I did not fight for money. I did not fight for attention. I fought for the right to exist visibly inside a name that was mine, but never handed to me. Adam shifted. When I was young, I was told to wait my turn, to smile politely, to trust the system. But silence never protected me. Law did. Gasps. A few pens paused mid-air. The codicil wasn't a loophole. It was a voice left in ink by a man who saw what the rest of you refused to see, me. I opened the binder, page after page of documentation. Grandfather's handwriting, financial reports, board meeting minutes, Adam's deals that misuse the Valen name. I don't seek applause, I said. I seek accountability. Then I turned directly to the crowd. If being a Valen means turning a blind eye, then I reclaim the name in full. Silence. Then one clap. Then another. Then the room stood. Not for pity. For power. Adam didn't speak again that day. He just smiled tight, empty, and left through the side exit. I stayed. I shook hands. I answered questions. I let them see me, not as the forgotten daughter, but as the true heir. Not all bridges need rebuilding. Her name was Leela, my cousin, 3 years older, the kind of girl who used to steal my lunch at family reunions and laugh while the adults said, "It's just how kids play." We hadn't spoken in years. Not really. She was always with Adam, cheerleader, echo, shadow. The golden cousin who once told me, "You're too sensitive. That's why they don't include you." Now, she stood in the hallway outside my office, twisting her bracelet like it might help her find the right words. "Can we talk?" she asked. I didn't move. I let her wait, then finally, "Come in." She stepped in slowly, no arrogance, no performance, just discomfort. "I saw the press conference," she said. "You were powerful." I waited. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything." I tilted my head. "For which part?" She flinched. "Good. I didn't know how hard it was for you," she whispered. "No," I said. "You didn't want to know." Silence stretched between us. She sat down. "I think what you're doing is right," she added. "I mean the name, the fight, all of it. You're making them uncomfortable, and they need that." I raised an eyebrow. "And what do you need?" "Leela?" She hesitated, then she said it. "I want to be part of it, whatever you're building." Ah, there it was. Not guilt, not reconciliation. Opportunity. She saw the tide shift and she wanted a lifeboat. I smiled. The old me would have welcomed her. The Eleanor who longed for inclusion, who thought validation from family meant worth, but that girl no longer existed. "You're welcome to watch," I said. "But this isn't a performance. It's a restructuring." "You don't trust me," she said. I looked her straight in the eye. "Leela, I trust patterns, and yours are printed in ink." She didn't argue. She stood. "I hope someday you'll forgive me." I nodded. "Maybe, but forgiveness isn't the foundation I'm building on." She left quietly, and I didn't look back. Not every bridge deserves repair. Some are better left in ashes, reminders of the places you'll never return to, the courtroom they didn't think I'd enter. The headline hit Tuesday morning. Valen Group linked to shady land deal in Nevada. The article was vague intentionally. Offshore accounts, shell companies, a real estate purchase made under the Valen Group name that tied back to tax evasion and political donations, and the man behind it, Adam. He hadn't just misused the name, he'd weaponized it, turned it into a mask for fraud, for greed, for everything my grandfather swore he'd never allow. I stared at the article, hands still. I didn't shake. I didn't panic. I opened my legal files, the codicil clause clear as day. Should the Valen name be used in unethical, exploitative, or dishonorable ways, authority to revoke branding and legacy rights shall fall to Eleanor Valen. I read it 3 times, then I picked up the phone. "File the injunction," I told my lawyer. "We're going to court." He exhaled slowly. "You sure? This isn't just a state law anymore. This is reputation war. Media, PR, federal oversight." "I'm aware," I said, "and Adam has money. He'll bury it in filings, drag it out for years." I didn't hesitate. "I've waited 26. I can wait 2 more. Within 48 hours, I filed an official claim to revoke Adam's legal right to use the Valen name in any corporate, financial, or commercial form." The internet lit up. The same blogs that called me entitled months ago now wrote headlines like, "Sister vs. Brother. The Valen Legacy Showdown airs in court," but one wrote the fine print. Adam responded with a statement, cold, calculated, predictable. "I have done nothing illegal. My sister's actions are emotionally driven and dangerous to the family's future." But it didn't land, because this time, I had the law. And I had the receipts, email chains, transaction logs, signature trails, all linked to LLCs bearing the Valen name, all under Adam's control. The court date was set, and when I walked into that courtroom, no one mistook me for emotional. They saw the suit, the files, the focus. I didn't dress for drama. I dressed for war. And as I sat at the plaintiff's table, I felt it. Not fear, not anger. Authority, the kind you don't inherit, the kind you earn one boundary at a time. The spotlight, they didn't think I'd survive. It started with whispers, then blogs, then panels, then headlines. "Ice Queen goes after her own family, too emotional or too strategic." "Another woman trying to tear down a legacy." The same media that once ignored me now couldn't shut up. Not about the lawsuit, not about Adam, Not even about the money, but about me. What I wore, how I spoke, whether my voice cracked during interviews, whether I smiled too little or too much. They didn't want facts. They wanted a feeling. They wanted to know. Was I likable? Was I bitter? Was I feminine enough to be right? I tried to ignore it, but the noise leaked in the waiting room before court. A producer from a national. It cares about perception. So I gave them one, not in a tweet, not in a viral quote, but in a simple, unscripted interview done on my terms. I sat down, one-on-one. No makeup artist, no stylist, just truth. I didn't file this lawsuit because I hate my family, I said. I filed it because I love what our name used to stand for, and I refuse to let it be auctioned off in silence. The clip exploded. Women shared it. Law students dissected it. Even retired attorneys weighed in. She's not angry, one said on air. She's prepared. And for once, that word prepared stuck. Not cold. Not calculated. Just ready. When I walked into court the next day, cameras flashed. But they weren't looking for weakness. They were looking for precedent. A woman who didn't just speak, she filed. She fought. She forced the law to look her in the eye and win or lose. I was no longer the invisible girl at the family table. I was the woman behind the name. The letter he never mailed, it came from an old family friend, Mr. Delaney. He was grandfather's lawyer once. Retired. Quiet. Tucked away in a coastal town Eleanor hadn't visited since childhood. He called unexpectedly. I found something, he said. You should see it. When I arrived, he didn't shake my hand. He just handed me a sealed envelope, faded, fragile. My name written across it, Eleanor Marie Valen, in grandfather's tight, deliberate script. I never mailed it, Delaney said. He asked me to hold it until the time was right. My hands trembled. I opened it slowly, unfolded the page, and read. Eleanor, I don't know when you'll read this. Maybe never. But if you do, it means you did what I was too afraid to do. Tell the truth about the family, about the way we handed you less and expected you to thank us anyway. I saw your mind long before they did. I watched you watch them, silent, steady, seeing everything. You reminded me of myself, not the part they praised, the part I buried. You won't inherit ease, Eleanor, but you'll inherit fire. And if you ever have to fight for the name, know this. You're not the one who broke tradition. You're the one who finally made it honest. Grandfather, me eyes stung. For me, proof that someone had seen me all along, not as dramatic, not as difficult, not as too much, but as exactly enough. The verdict that changed the room. The courtroom was packed, every seat taken, every breath held. Camera crews stationed outside, tweets firing mid-sentence. The world waiting not just for a decision, but a symbol. I sat alone at my table. No family behind me. No crowd cheering. Just files. Just facts. Just me. Across the aisle, Adam whispered to his lawyer, smirking, confident, still certain that his last name could bend rules like it always had. The judge entered. Everyone rose. The clerk handed over a file. The judge read in silence. Then she looked up, glasses low on her nose, eyes sharp. After thorough examination of evidence provided by both parties, including documented misuse of the Valen name in financial and legal matters, she paused. You could feel the tension snap across the room like a wire. This court recognizes the legal standing of the codicil presented by Miss Eleanor Valen. Adam froze. The judge continued. Effective immediately, Adam Valen is prohibited from using the Valen name or brand in any corporate, commercial, or public initiative. Full naming rights, legacy designation, and brand control are to be granted to Miss Eleanor Valen. Silence, the kind that isn't quiet, the kind that echoes. Then the gavel dropped. Court is adjourned. Just like that, history shifted. I stood slowly. Adam didn't look at me. His lawyer did, just briefly, with that hollow stare attorneys give when they know the house is already on fire. I didn't speak, didn't gloat, didn't flinch. I walked out, through the flashing cameras, through the hallway whispers, through the sea of microphones. Someone shouted, Eleanor, anything to say to your family? I stopped, turned, looked directly into the lens, and said, "I didn't destroy the legacy. I just made sure it finally meant something." Then I walked away, not as the forgotten daughter, not as the girl in the background, but as the woman who turned silence into statute, and ink into justice, the power that doesn't fill the room. The name was mine now. Valen, on the signage, on the website, on the legal filings. Everywhere, people stood when I walked into meetings. Strangers called me ma'am before I even spoke. Investors requested calls just to say they admired the courage. But in the quiet, in the moments between applause and sleep, I felt it. That hollow place they don't talk about in success stories, the silence after winning. The question, now what? I walked the halls of the building I now controlled. Every corner once soaked in memory. The elevator where Adam first told me I wasn't executive enough. The conference room where Mother insisted I was too emotional. The lobby where I'd sat, waiting for meetings that never came. All mine now. And yet, not warm, just tall, cold, efficient. I passed a glass wall where my reflection stared back, same face, new posture. I didn't recognize the woman in the heels. I admired her, but I missed the girl who once dreamed from a place of hope, not proof. That night, I walked into the office alone and sat behind the desk, grandfather's old desk. I opened the drawer and found a single photo. Me, age 7, holding a homemade CEO sign, smiling like power meant possibility, not protection. I stared at it, and I whispered, "Are you proud?" I didn't expect an answer, but I felt it, somewhere, in the echo of the walls, in the pause between heartbeats. A quiet voice inside that said, "You don't owe them warmth. You owe yourself peace." So I leaned back, let the city lights fill the windows, and for the first time since the war began, I exhaled, not in victory, in release. The mic they never gave me. The stage was smaller than I expected. Just a wooden platform, a glass podium, a sea of students in black gowns and nervous smiles. I was the closing speaker, the one they saved for last, the legacy builder, the woman who took her family name and redefined it. I looked out at them, rows of eyes waiting for something profound. Some wanted inspiration, some wanted drama, some just wanted to scroll their phones and leave. But I didn't speak for them. I spoke for the girl who once watched her brother take her seat, for the daughter they told to be quiet, for the woman who made the law listen. I adjusted the mic, and I began. When I was younger, I thought power was given, that if you behaved, worked hard, stayed quiet, someone would eventually hand you a seat at the table. They did. End single quotes. So I built my own, and let me tell you something they don't write in business books. Building alone is hard, but waiting forever is worse. The crowd leaned in. I continued. They called me emotional, said I was bitter, said I'd ruin the family, and then they watched as I rewrote the terms they never read. So if you're sitting here thinking you have to be chosen to matter, you don't. You have to choose yourself, even when no one claps, even when you're afraid, even when your voice shakes, because the moment you do, you stop asking for space and start taking it. Silence. Then thunder. Applause so loud it echoed off the walls. I stepped back from the mic, tears in some students' eyes, faculty nodding, even the dean, the same one who once told me I was too aggressive in debates, standing. I left the stage not as a name they tried to erase, but as one they could no longer ignore. Outside, a student caught up to me. She looked maybe 20, sharp eyes, timid voice. "Miss Valen?" she asked. "How do you know when you've finally made it?" I smiled. "You don't," I said. "But if you're standing alone and still speaking, you're already there." And I walked away, not to applause, not to headlines, but to a quiet future. I earned one boundary, one battle, one word at a time. Have you ever been underestimated, silenced, or dismissed by your own family? What would you do if they stole your name, your legacy, your voice? Let us know in the comments. And if this story hit you right in the chest, like, subscribe, and share with someone who needs to remember. You don't wait to be chosen. You choose to rise.